I'm Bob Colt, and we're continuing our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools. Dan Stafford is back with me today. We're looking at an athletic department update. How are we doing so far?
Well, in between days off with snow days, we're doing really well. We competitive cheer just completed their conference season, and they were conference champions, I believe, for the third year in a row.
That's great.
Then they're heading off to regionals this weekend, which will be tough, but we look for good things from them. Wrestling, they're at the end of their season. They finished third in the conference, and we have two young gentlemen going to the state individual, Chase Challenger and Eric Wales. So we're looking forward to them competing at the state tournament. We had 4 other wrestlers that made it to regionals. Girls basketball is 12-5, which is a good season so far. They had a couple of huge wins. They beat Eaton Rapids, which in girls basketball is a pretty tough thing to do. And they also went to Marshall, and Marshall's number 6 in Division II, and they beat them up pretty badly. So our girls are doing an excellent job.
Yeah, beat them up on the floor.
Yes, yes. In a
In the
matter
game.
of yes,
Yeah.
yes. They beat them, I think, by 24 points.
Wow.
So, yeah, they when our girls' team's clicking, they're tough for anybody to beat. So that's some.
So how do you bring all of this athletic stuff that you're doing together? And there are individual competitions like wrestling, but for the most part, they're team sports, and everybody has to be kind of clicking on the team to be successful.
Yeah, in this winter especially, it's been tough with missing practices and games and having to schedule meets at different times. But I give a lot of credit to our coaches. They work really hard at it. They put a lot of extra time into it. But it is juggle, with school and exams and different things like that. Our coaches really have to adjust some of their schedules and work around things. So
The weather's really been a problem, hasn't it?
yeah, I think actually today was our 10th, I think, snow day, 9th or 10th. And it seems every time we have a snow day, there's events after school. So rearranging those is always a challenge. But
So one thing leads to a series of things that can be rescheduled or canceled or practice or compete or whatever.
yeah, and the MHSAA has some rules with, you can only have 3 basketball games in a week. And certain things with wrestling and weighing in, but sometimes our sub-varsities will lose out because we might have to cancel a game of theirs to make sure we get a varsity game in, which we don't like to do, but sometimes on occasion it happens.
So how does an athletic director juggle all that? You not only have to know what's going on, but you've got to schedule all the people, activities, and events that are involved in the calendar.
It's been a quick work in progress, learning as we go, but it is, and it's communicating with the people that work our games, keep score, take tickets, all those things, and also looking at the middle school. Sometimes we have to bump things to the middle school for events, and working with the community, because sometimes CJO might have the gym rented, and communicating that way, and hopefully we don't step on too many toes, but we can get our events in and we can do what's best for the kids.
What do you do? I mean, when you get the events scheduled and you're ready to go, that's just one important part. But is there anything that you do in Charlotte to keep the kids motivated and excited about their sport, even if they're performing well or, maybe not doing as well as everybody thinks they should be?
Yeah, it's, communicating with the coaches, finding out how kids are doing, how they're doing, and then when you see kids in the hall or when you see kids at, a lot of kids come to our basketball games on Friday, talking to them, seeing what's going on. We got our volleyball team won district, so we got their plaque up on the wall, and, making sure the girls realize that, when you do good things, that we'll recognize it here and, keep pushing kids to achieve more.
Yeah, and so in your constant development of young people, athletics becomes a really important part. It helps, we've talked about it before, it helps keep a lot of kids in school, but do you think it keeps them excited about coming to school? Even on a snow day?
Oh, definitely. And I think at this point in the year, with as many as we've had, kids are dreading actually snow days. I never thought I would say that, but a lot of times they have to miss practice when we don't have school. They, tonight we had games scheduled. We had to bump them to tomorrow night. So yeah, it also helps kids manage time, and it helps them make sure that they've got the things done. If they've got a project due on Thursday and tomorrow night they know they have games now, they've got to spend their snow day getting some of that work done. So yeah, it's many different things that helps kids with
It's amazing that we kind of keep young people to this schedule, because to adults it's kind of easy, but it must be harsher or harder for a young person who's not used to that kind of schedule to get that discipline that they would get both in the athletics and planning out an academic career. You got to keep them on track all the time.
And not to mention if they're in NHS, if they're in, any other club or activity. We have the play coming up soon, and all those different things. A lot of our kids are in all of those things, and it definitely helps them be ready for life after high school. And then trying to get more and more kids involved in things is always a challenge too. But
so let me toss out a question to you, Dan. I mean, you've been engaged in the athletic program for a little while. Do you think it's more important for people to compete or really be successful and win? Because there's a lot of conversation about just having everybody or as many people involved, or if you're really going to have an elite special program of young people and a culture of success.
Well, I think getting kids to compete and compete at a very high level is our job. Sometimes the winning and losing, we can't control so much, the kids can't, but it's teaching the kids that if you work really hard and you put in that extra time and you do all the things that coaches ask you to and your parents ask you to, that you'll be successful, whether you win or lose. We would like to have all our teams be district champions and regional champions, but it's a process and work. It's something that we're striving to do, but I think as a district, our job is to give our kids every opportunity to be successful.
Is it difficult with all the distractions that young people have to get them involved in athletics, or is it still an easy sell in Charlotte?
I think at times it can be hard. I think depending on what sport you're talking about. We're talking in the fall and the winter of getting swimming started at the varsity level, and I think it's got the possibility. If we can convince kids that it is a lot of work, but yet there is some good reward with it. And there's the social media and all these different things out there that kind of pull kids, and the different things that we didn't have to deal with when we were kids. So it is a challenge, but I think Charlotte does a really good job of getting kids out there and getting them involved.
I think of a sport like basketball, and really, when you're looking at the floor, there are only a few young people actively playing, and we don't really think about that. We all want to root for our team, but there are fewer people. And you look at a sport like wrestling, where you have some really successful wrestlers who go on and compete in tournaments, but to be a wrestler is a big commitment for a young person. So all of these sports require students to be really involved, even if they're not competing.
Oh yes, wrestling is probably the toughest sport, and that's why sometimes our numbers might go up and down a little bit. It's the nutrition, it's keeping the weight off. Yeah. I had two wrestlers Friday night wanting to weigh themselves to make sure for the regionals on Saturday they're all set. So it is a commitment. It's something that, it's one of those life lessons that I think athletics gives kids, along with keeping them active in school and keeping them, there. If you come out to, Thursday night, we have our JV and freshman teams playing. We'll have 25 kids in the stands sitting there watching and, being involved. So there is a lot of pride in Charlotte. I've seen that in the first 6 months, and, hopefully we can keep that going and get it even stronger.
So 6 months down and a lot of months probably ahead, what do you see as your big success in the short time that you're here, and what do you want to work on more?
I think coordinating more with our youth groups, our CJO, making sure that the coaches there have the same kind of philosophy that we would like to see at the high school. Making sure that kids are involved at that level so that more and more kids are coming to the high school ready. That would be a goal I would have, kind of working through the summer and getting to know more people.
Because that's really your farm system of...
It is, yeah. And I think there's some things we can maybe do there with our coaches and with our varsity coaches. I've talked with the fall coaches about maybe running some clinics for the players, along with involving the coaches, talking about some drills and things that we'd like to see done. Accomplishment, I would just like to say getting to know some of the kids and the coaches and making sure that our coaches feel that, I'm there to support them and what they need, and make sure that, like I said, we're giving our kids everything that they might need to be successful.
And what do kids require from a program? I mean, if they commit to a sport, it's a big commitment, and they make the investment to be around friends, to be active, to be successful. But what do they really look for and need from an athletic program now?
I think it's nowadays it's almost that feeling of belonging. You know, you feel like you're kind of in an extended family. You know, you have 12 to 15 players on a basketball team, or you have 25 kids in wrestling. And, you know, I know our wrestling coach talks about it's not easy to do those things. And just that involvement, you know, you don't get that sometimes as much with kids, where they feel like they belong to a group or they belong to, you know, a certain collection of kids. So I think, you know, that's kind of what we look for, that, you know, keeps kids into sports, and hopefully we can get more and more.
And what do you do as an athletic director to make sure that the coaches are at the caliber you want to teach young people? You've been lucky in Charlotte, you have a good group of coaches.
Just communicating with them, getting to, you know, I've seen all of them do some of their practices and how they interact with kids. You know, being there kind of as a sounding board for them when their coaches get frustrated, whether it's with players or referees or, you know, weather as it is this year. But, you know, it's just that constant communication, making sure that, you know, our coaches realize that our whole effort is the experience the student gets. Like I said before, we want to be successful with wins and losses, but over and above that, it's the experience the kid's going to pull out of it, and making sure that, you know, the coach keeps that in mind as we move through the seasons.
Hey, so you're looking ahead too at sports coming up. Baseball?
Baseball, yep, softball.
And so, are you frustrated by the weather in the spring? You, as an athletic director, you have all kinds of cancellations you're prepared to deal with. You're thinking about now, aren't you?
Yeah, in fact, I just today as I came in, I looked at the pile of snow out in the parking lot and I said, we're starting spring sports. We have a game scheduled March 26th, I believe, for softball. Well, I mean, we'll see. But it is frustrating. I know the spring, I've coached in the spring when I was at Grand Ledge, and that can be just, it's kind of a whirlwind for about 2 months straight. And I think the winter has kind of prepared me for that, making sure that, you know, we have all our T's crossed and I's dotted. But it is, you know, it's once that snow is going to break and once we can get on the fields, making sure that they're ready. I'm sure there'll be some Saturday and Sundays we'll be out there with rakes and mowers and everything else. But it is the spring. Once we get going and once the sun's out, it usually is a good season and nice to be a part of.
Yeah, and so when you think about any delays or disruptions, you plan a season for anything with some forethought of, you know, backup dates and games of what you're going to do, because that's got to happen for the spring, right?
Yeah. In some sports, it's a little easier. You know, with softball and baseball, you've got to worry about pitchers' arms, and you can't load too many games next to each other. But things like track, you know, usually we always have a contingency day for the league meet and different meets. There is that point, though, kind of like we are at basketball right now, where you get to the end and there's no room to make things up. So you've got to do the best you can, but we try to make sure our kids have the opportunities.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about track then. I mean, because you get a lot of different ways for young people to compete.
Yep, we have field events. We have, you know, many different types of running events. You know, some of our shot putters and discus kids, they're not exactly the kids you would picture in track, but, you know, I know Coach Gall and Coach Schneckenberg need those kids. And it's good for them because, you know, you get your physical fitness up, you're more active, you're kind of, like I said, a part of that team or that group. I think our boys and girls team in track will be pretty successful this spring. I know that the girls team are looking for some really high expectations, so it'll be a good spring for them.
Now, track is also, I mean, I bring it up because it's a sport that relies on a lot of ability for young people to come into it, but you can really, a coach can really make a difference, can't they?
They can, and it's, you know, if the student athlete wants to work, it'll be a great experience for them because we don't cut and track. Any kid that comes out and wants to run and be active or try the field events can participate, and it's a nice sport for a lot of different types of kids that maybe you wouldn't picture on the football field or the basketball field or baseball field. but you can get them out active, and sometimes it leads to other sports or things down the road.
Yeah. And so, are you thinking about football even now?
Not right now, because we have the schedule set,
Right.
but it will be interesting next year with the new conference and some of the different rivalries that I'm sure will develop.
And we've talked about that, but you're feeling pretty good about that decision, right?
The new conference? Yeah. I think it's going to be really good for Charlotte. You know, the other schools are right at our size, with the exception of two that are a little bit smaller. But I think it gives us room to grow as far as good competition, getting us ready for state tournaments and all our different sports. And, you know, I think we can be real competitive in all our sports in that conference, so I think it'll be good.
If you could fix the state tournament system, what would you do, Dan?
It's tough because all the different sports are a lot different. If you're looking specifically at maybe like basketball and some of the sports, maybe having more divisions. You know, we went to the 8 divisions in football. You look at basketball, we have districts coming up for girls next week. And in Division II alone, we have Leslie. It's about 400 students all the way up to, I think, 890 is the top Division II. So you're talking about schools double the size of each other, playing each other in districts. At the Division I level, it's even more. You know, Hazlitt, which is 900, 910, their Division I school playing teams of 2,700 kids in their high school.
Yeah.
So I think maybe having more divisions would help. You know, you get more teams playing in the state tournament and you get more teams exposed to it.
Would you agree that it's maybe as good or the best possible system that people could come up with, or do you project or think that that will evolve?
I think right now it's good. What other states, there's a lot of states that only have one division in their sports. You know, wrestling out in California, you're talking 900 high schools and there's one state champion for each weight class. So I think it's good what we have in Michigan. I think, you know, with a few adjustments, you know, some people talk about having the parochial schools in their own state tournament and the public schools. But, you know, I think what Michigan has is good. I think they're always looking to make adaptations and changes to make it best for its members.
So how do you make sure that all the athletic programs are talking to each other and working together for the benefit of young people?
A lot of them do it already. You know, our girls coaches with volleyball, basketball, track, they kind of all have to work together because they share their athletes. I know the summertime it gets a little competitive with their camps and what individual teams want to do. But, you know, that's what I see as my job, is making sure that one coach isn't too dominating over another, so that our kids have opportunities to do them all, or as many sports as they want to.
Dan, anything we need to know about sports and athletics that we haven't talked about?
Well, we have like I said, the regional competitive cheer this weekend. Boys basketball is going to be at Jackson Northwest, and girls basketball is at Olivet. And girls district's going to be tough, but we look for good things from all of our teams. So.
Well, Dan, thanks again for the time. I'm Bob Colt, and we'll continue our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools.